Hi there. I'm going to be going over the final press for HHE270. If you're seeing this, I hope you're doing well. And the COVID-19 has not affected you or your loved ones at all. I hope you guys are being safe and you guys are social distancing. Today, I'm going to go over this. It's your Health Today package presented to you by myself. I have 25 slides minimum done. Now, the way that I have done this, if you're looking at the bullet points, the way that I've done it is after every chapter that's mentioned, which is, I believe it is, check chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 6, or chapter 5, chapter 6, chapter 8, chapter 9, I believe it's 10, 11, and 16. After every chapter that I've actually mentioned, I've included a slide where we can go over the course information, and then you can hear me talk. So not only is it from the textbook, but you get to hear about what I've learned and maybe hit on points that either aren't written down or that we like discussed in class. Um, and then we can kind of, or we just even talk about just personal things and how maybe it affects things like college or community and public health. So with that, let's go ahead and get started. I'm on the first slide here. See, you have your health today, and then we go into the second slide. On chapter 1, self, family, and community. All right, so this chapter. I'm so sorry. I'm just moving my camera. All right, so chapter 1, self, family, and community. This chapter serves as introduction into HHE 270. This is the very first chapter. Going over the chapter, the many different versions of healthcare, of health are discussed to build an understanding on the wellness of an individual being. We discuss many statistics, for examples like comparing children, adolescents, and adults, as far as like how they live and the different aspects of health that they will encounter. We go um, into both health disparities and health equities. Health disparities is, I believe, it's the differences between health amongst, say, Caucasians with white people, and then African Americans. And then health equity is how equal are those in standards. So if you have genes that are in one, is that equal to genes in another? And we need to identify these areas. It differs among different cultures. Further on, we dive into public health, community health topic, and build on health promotion, disease prevention, health related behavior choices, and the model that is presented within that chapter. So basically, it's giving an intro into public health, which is my major, so it's a big deal. Um, and then many aspects of health will reflect on genes or behaviors learned from others. So this would start as early as childhood, being born in. You're born into this world through your mother and your father. You inherit whatever genes that they have. For me, I believe I'm a high risk for heart disease and like cancer or like diabetes, things that come down from my grandparents on my father's side. So that would be like an example. For behaviors learned, my grandmother likes to shop a lot when she's stressed out, and I've inherited that little like behavior from her because I do like the same thing. So, and then if you see, I'll now be on chapter 4. So let's talk about chapter 1. Chapter 1, I thought it's a basic intro into HHH70, which was what it said. Um, it goes over a lot of the different areas for health. I didn't really put that down in the slides, but it did say that in the textbook as far as physical health, mental health, social health, spiritual health, I believe it's interpersonal or social health. Um, and then yeah, so it's really just the intro. Chapter 1, like areas that were brought up, will be discussed a lot further on in chapters to come. Also, I want to make a quick note now. If this video does go over 5 to 7 minutes, I apologize. I'm very sorry. I'm gonna upload it on YouTube, so then that way it's not too much. I know that if this were in class, this would take this would be a brief like talk over. Um, as a YouTube video, and due to COVID-19, trying to discuss this in person is very difficult. So, moving on. All right, we're going to be on slide 5, chapter 2 with mental health and stress. Now we're diving into one of the most health discussed in chapter 1. Right off, we learn about positive psychology movement. We learned what healthy people are, healthy people characteristics are, meaning that hey, that positive people are they're optimistic. Whenever problems come throughout like the day, they don't really let it ruin their day. They always find a way to move on. They find a way to stay happy, and they mentally don't let themselves fall apart. We learned what mentally healthy people characteristics are. We learned what self actualization concept and the steps on how to achieve it from Maslow's hierarchy of needs. So what that would be is once you have the founding needs of where you are at the bottom, so like the needs that you need to like survive. Once you have those needs, water, food, shelter, you begin to develop more needs or things that aren't necessary, but things that they're needs, but they're like intangible. Things like love, things like almost like a self worth, and through different steps, it begins to like develop, and that's what the Maslow's thing was talking about. All right, now we're on slide 6. Go over optimism, self efficacy, and resilience, and to discuss how these play an important role in the healthy mentality. So optimism is something happens, and you believe that regardless that the day can change, that it's not the end of it. Self efficacy is almost the same, but you're a little bit more realistic with your expectations, and resilience is regardless of what happens, you don't let your day fall apart. It's That's where like the mental like toughness is, or spiritual, if that's how you want to say. But like whatever happens, um, you don't let your day go to waste. If something happens, you don't. If you grieve over something, you're gonna get over it pretty quickly. How these play an important role in healthy mentality. Talk about the emotional intelligence and how important it is. Discuss how people face death/grief with the Kubler-Ross model. So we all know the model and the phases. Different life events and everyday struggles can add more stress. So whether it's going to work or maybe you have a child, trying to think, you have errands to run now, and if you want to like relate this into like the college world, really like it does add up. I'm gonna go ahead and move on to slide 7, and I'm gonna kind of add this into let's talk about chapter 2. But relating this now into college, you have all these expectations now as an adult. You're not expected to go to classes. You're expected to run errands. You now live on your own. Some students will be expected to work, and we debated that this was the most stressful time in an adult's life. I think that's wrong. I disagree with that personally. I have my own reasons why, but I'm not gonna let my personal feelings kind of get into this intro of this. Like we have so much more that we need to cover, and I'm not gonna go over my feelings like just like afterwards. But I'm just saying I don't think that college stress is the most stressful. I do believe that it is hard as a transitional period in time. But I don't think that the mental stress load is that difficult though. So we're gonna move on now. Chapter 8, or not chapter 8, slide 8. Chapter 5, nutrition. In the introduction, we covered the wide basis on essential nutrients. We went over the guidelines set in stone by the government. Well, we went over the RDA, the DRI, and the AMDR. We discussed my plate in class in defining portions for people, like just as kind of like on what you should be like looking at, like what food groups you should like focus on more. So we went over the wide basis for vitamins at the introduction level, and the roles they play in our physical health. We went over the the phytochemicals found in foods, things that are not considered nutrients at all. For example, you had the forgive me if I say this wrong. Like, please forgive me. the phytonutraceuticals. You have antioxidants and phytoestrogens. We discussed how activity varied among different ages is important and helps balance our nutrition to create a healthy lifestyle. All right, so chapter five, nutrition is very healthy. I believe that nutrition is probably one of the two concerns that as human beings that we need to have for physical health. The other one being fitness, and we'll hit that slide whenever we get to it. But as far as like nutrition goes, nutrition is a very hard thing to balance, especially in college. In college, there's a lot of like concerns that affect you in chapter two, which we just talked about. But now you have them as far as like nutrition. You have things like money, you have time, like management. You have things that come into play with nutrition. And as like a student, you're probably just trying to eat very cheap. You're probably trying to live on like your own, unless you're taking out student loans, and that probably helps. But as far as I can say, um, nutrition in college is probably not that good. And then if it is good, you're probably not working out. You're not going to student health center as much as what you should be. Um, I'd say earlier this semester it was very rainy. It was very cold, so you're probably not outside being as productive as what you should be. Um, so those are just some things to take into consideration for chapter five. Now we're on chapter six. We're on slide 10. We're on fitness. So this was the second part. The second part in physical health that I was talking about. That at least in my mind. Starting with the intro, we immediately learned both health related and skill related fitnesses. Um, we learn about what is going on with fitness at the molecular level inside the body and how it helps maintain nutrition mentioned previously. Guidelines are set for work, everyday activity, both moderate and vigorous. Next, we go over how the benefits of fitness can prevent a lot of health disorders and diseases that can cause early death. Um, so with that being like, I wrote that out in a very broad term to sound very like, professional. But what that means is that we went over the benefits of fitness, meaning that if you're outside, if you're running, even if you're just like working out, prevents health disorders and diseases. If you take care of yourself, you're probably not gonna have like a stroke. Right? Just because like you're working out, you're maintaining your good health. Not only are you eating right, you are using the nutrients that you get in the right way. So you're maintaining a balance like between both. Um, as far as diseases go, like the things I saw, you have cancer, you have heart disease, you have not lung disease. You have cancer, you have heart disease, you have diabetes, you have different things. For me, in my genes, it's a very common thing, and I believe that happens with a lot of people that come from the predominancy of like Ireland or Scotland. So it's a very predominant thing. I think it has to do with a lower deficiency in vitamin D3. I could be wrong, but so we discussed the gender differences and fitness is different for both males and females. So the expectations behind what males and females can do, what we expect both to at least be able to keep up with, are a little bit. So what your males can do, your females might like struggle with, or they might have a hard time with. So like if I can run 10 miles in 2 hours and 30 minutes, I don't expect most females to be able to do that. I'm not saying that they can't. I'm just saying that like in today's world, like there's not nearly enough that can do that. I've seen girls that have run faster than me. I'm just saying that I don't expect everyone to. Like you would want to open up that gap and make it more easier for them than what it would be for like most guys. Because guys should, in theory, be able to handle more. Moving on to the next slide. Moving on to slide 11. The important that we learn the importance of warm ups and cool downs are mentioned and how they play a vital role in the workouts if one wanted to avoid unnecessary injury and preserve the body. So warming up and cooling down, it doesn't just take care of the body in the moment; it takes care of the body overall. In time to come. So if I'm age 21 and I expect to keep doing this thing without warm up and cool up, I probably won't be able to work out past like 35. You know, like you need to take care of yourself to preserve yourself if you because you don't want to stop working out and exercising past 35. It's something that you should want to do until the day that you die. And the idea is that if you don't do warm ups and cool downs, you'll suffer in the long end because you didn't take care of like your body. So that's something to think about. The chapter proves that fitness is good of any kind, but if one does too much fitness over exertion, fatigue, sprains, tears, heat injuries being like heat stroke or just like dehydration, and such that might be either working out too much or not taking care of themselves in the right manner. So if you were having these things, you maybe didn't do something correctly. Um, so um, if you're dehydrated, you didn't drink enough water. If you're getting sprains and tears, maybe you didn't stretch enough. If you're fatigued, maybe you didn't get like enough rest like the day prior up to this workout. Um, see, we're gonna go on to chapter 12. All right, let's talk about chapter 6. All right, so today in college, that's what's kind of what I'm gonna be like relating this back to because I feel like it's very easy to like relate. Either you work here, or you live here, or you attend school here. It's something we can like relate to, so I'm gonna keep relating it back onto college. All right, but on slide 12 for talking about chapter 6. Um, Fitness is very important. I don't think I see enough students that work out. I think that it's a big game that most students will talk. I don't think it's something that enough people do. And then on top of that, you have to match. You have to have the balance that I mentioned with nutrition. If you want to be healthy in fitness, you got to be healthy in nutrition too. So it does me no good to run and go to the gym and lift all these weights and then go to a buffet. It doesn't work out. Like you need to have this balance with both. I'm trying to think. If you are going to the gym and you're not seeing a change in yourself, you need to kind of look at yourself and kind of be like, okay, well, what's going on? Am I living something wrong? Am I doing something wrong? Am I? Do I have some personal like habits that are not good? Like, do I not get like enough sleep? Is my nutrition not where it needs to be because I'm not seeing like physical like changes? And one could argue that maybe you should give it some time to see improvement. But if you're not seeing personal like changes, maybe the nutrition's off. You have personal habits. Like if you're not seeing these changes, then what's the point in going to like the gym? Like as a student in college, you have so many more things to do with your time. You could be working. You could be at a job making money to pay for bills. You could be working on homework and studying, trying to make A's. You could be socializing with your friends. Yeah, like why put in anywhere from 30 minutes to like 3 hours in the gym? Like what are you doing to better yourself? You know, if you're not seeing these changes, then you need to evaluate what you're doing not in the gym but out of like the gym and try to like fix that. Slide 13, chapter 8, body image. Upon the intro, we discussed how the body image played heavily in like the last chapter. Now we discuss how it differs among skinny, fat, both genders, and racial and ethnicities. We will go over the eating disorders related to body images, health concerns that will arise, and the treatments one can undergo to help aid the efforts. We learn about how people change their image not by just eating or exercising, but with art like tattoo, fashion, cosmetics to show a better version of like themselves. And that's a fair thing because when you think of body image, as far as health, you only think physically what's on the outside and what has to do with health, which that kind of sounds like physical health. It only sounds like nutrition and fitness. Um, let's talk about chapter 8. Um, Fitness and nutrition are areas of improvement that college kids can always seek to better themselves in. Um, as far as tattoos, cosmetics, and fashion go, I see a lot of fashion on campus. I see a lot of sororities and fraternities and groups and individuals that represent that like themselves. And one could say that fashion is very expensive but I think that how you carry yourself, not even just as a professional, but as a human being, is important. And when you do that, you notice significant increases in places of health. Whether it's mental, it's spiritual, it's physical, you notice changes like all around. If I care about fashion and how I look, that might affect how I dress myself when I go to like the gym or I go for a run. Um, that clearly body image plays a lot into how you mentally perceive things too. It really does. It really hits on it hard as a human being. Tattoos, I really don't see enough of in college. I have quite a few. I have more, but I'm not gonna take the time in the video to go to show them. Um, my tattoos aren't really for body. They don't affect my body image. They kind of just affect my person. They affect who I am, and I am very spiritual. On top of that, so I do get enough grief from my mother about that, but I don't see enough of those really in college. I do see them, but they're either well hidden or you see individuals that have clearly gone all out. But it's very few like numbers, as I said. Cosmetics. I can't tell you how many times on Facebook or social media or like YouTube or on like TV. If you're watching like in like MTV or VH1, you will see numerous people that wake up in the morning or haven't put on makeup yet, and they go through their day and they look terrible, and then they put makeup on and they're a completely whole different person. It's crazy. Like fashion is understandable. You can take somebody who woke up with sweatpants and a hoodie on, and you give them a dress, and they're like that's understandable. Like okay, but cosmetics truly do hide a person's face. Like for guys, it does very few changes. I put some hair gel on. I maybe do my hard part. I brush my teeth. I maybe put some cologne on. Like that's it. Girls change their whole exterior person with cosmetic, and it's crazy. Um, like bedhead goes away. The wrinkles like beneath your eyes, they just fade, or they're enlightened. I don't know. Lips will pop out more. Like it's just crazy, just how crazy that you can hide those features. Chapter 9, Alcohol and Tobacco, currently on slide 15. In the intro, we are shown acceptable smoking and drinking rates. I think I didn't mean to say acceptable. I meant to say exceptional smoking and drinking rates. So my fault. I'm way sorry about that. They compared amongst how we rate from other countries and are shown how it widely affects college students. Next, we tackle the different way drinking alcohol is performed in the ways that people do it to socialize. We are shown how alcohol pays a toll on our health and how it widely varies among different people. After we finish with alcohol, we discuss tobacco, how it has changed through the decades. In many forms, it has taken. It used to just be a puff on a cigar, or like traditional like Englishmen would do a pipe, and you can argue that you still see like the pipe, but it's not as traditional as it's not as commonly used as what it was then. Now we just have jewels, so it's really taken its toll. Lastly, we discussed the health effects and how tobacco is seen today in society. I'll say, make sure I'm on here. All right, slide 16. Chapter the chapter goes on how to quit smoking and drinking is a very difficult thing that people struggle with who want to stop. Recovery options exist for both. Unfortunately, there's no guarantee that they will work because they're completely dependent off of the users themselves. So quitting is on the individual to do. Whether it's they want to do it or like maybe someone is forcing them to, like a spouse. I've seen spouses who have been almost divorced because of a habit that's very much like this, and they try to quit, and they're struggling with it, and the ultimatum that they got from the other spouse was, hey, I might like divorce you or like leave you if you can't quit this. I have a very personal matter that's like that in my life, So I can verify that it's true. Recovery options exist for so we read that. The best way to stop is if you are thinking about doing either is to create a plan, you see it through, you create goals along the way to measure and reward yourself for progress made. You can do that to feel positive about what you're doing and mentally, and it's kind of like a positive reinforcement for what you're doing. Meaning that if I'm doing this, I need to reinforce a good action, so I'm going to maybe I have a cheat meal, or maybe you go on like a date night. You know, you have fun with that. Or you don't even do it to necessarily feel good about yourself. You're doing it so that you can mark your progress. Hey, I went 2 weeks without smoking. I had a withdrawal. I went 2 weeks, so now let me try to go like 3 weeks. You know, that's a perfect way to do it. So like, hey, you're always pushing yourself to go further on, until you can break that dependency on smoking or alcohol. Let's talk about chapter 9. In college world, drinking is a huge thing. It's mostly just binge drinking. It is to socialize, but then I know a lot of individuals do it because they develop early alcohol abuse problems that turn into like addictions. Um, where I work at, I see it all the time. I feel bad. I want individuals to have fun, but at the rate that they do it at, it's not. It's almost not safe. Um, For smoking, I see it. It's common, but not as common. It's mostly just jewels that have really grown on that have caught the college crowd, and I think there's a lot of new laws that are coming into play. Forgive me if I can't quote them. I'm from Kentucky, and if you were 16, you can buy cigarettes, and or 16. So 16 you can smoke. You cannot buy them. 18 you can buy them, and you can smoke them. Um, that was the law that I grew up with. I believe that's still in effect now. So, um, going on to chapter 8, or going on to slide 18, chapter 10, drugs. Our intro begins with numbers of how many people use drugs and by what population and or communities they would be broken down into. We explain what abuse and misuse are and the many ways that they are administered to people that use them for whatever intentions that they have. We go through the drugs of misuse, which are not over the counter, and describe the effects that they have. We then discuss how many recovery methods to help others that have made decisions themselves, or could be in a situation where they have to recover and the path that they undergo. That was a very wordy chapter. I'm very sorry if that was very confusing. Basically, you talk about like the narcotics, the misuse and the abuse of drugs, and then the roads for recovery for all of them. Um, and then it breaks down into, I believe it was, it's the over, not the over the counter drugs. Yeah. So yeah. So I'm very sorry that was kind of a mouthful. So let's talk about chapter 10. Chapter 10 in college. It's very sad. It's not legal, and there's a lot of high risk for like felons that you can get for drugs specifically. I've heard the one for marijuana, but I don't know if that's. I haven't verified if it's true. That's just a rumor that I've heard. Um, I know. I think like for my biggest job, like let me rephrase that. The drug that I encounter the most, the biggest drug that I encounter the most in my job is cocaine. And you really think that college kids wouldn't have the funds to to be able to purchase cocaine? Um, but I think what I'm noticing in today is there are a lot of entitled adults. I'm not gonna call them children because they're above the age of 18. They're legally accountable for their decisions, but you have young adults that are funded by their parents, um, and they develop this sense of entitlement, and they think they can get away with whatever they want, and they actually use these funds to purchase cocaine in Tuscaloosa. and I always see it because I have this happen at my job. I always see this, and they think that they can get away with it, and they can actually turn like a blind eye to it. And the idea is that cocaine and a lot of drugs have never been legalized anywhere in the USA. They're not legalized in or they're legalized in some countries, but then there's a lot of drugs that are still like outlawed if you get caught. Um, I'm gonna cut myself off here. I want to talk about chapter 10. I don't want to go on a personal rant. That's what I want to avoid. So like we need to get through the rest of this. We're on slide 19. Going on to chapter 11, sexual health. All right. So we actually just went over this the other day. In this chapter, we discussed the sexual anatomy in both genders and in great detail. Then we went through the STIs that were possible to get, as well as ways for an individual to avoid getting an STI. We went through the sexual development for both males and females. Lastly, we went over the popular growing trends, as well as current sexual trends that flow around through college or adolescence. If you see, let's talk about chapter 11. I did not post a picture here. I think you all can figure out why. Moving on. In college world today, there's a lot of bad trends that have developed. I think that the use of non-personal partners, be like, hey, it's a one and done, or it's a partnership in which this is the resource that you offer me. It's just sex. Decades ago, I don't believe that this was a thing. Or maybe it was, but not to this growing exponential like extent. Now today, it is a thing. It is a very common trend because people want to avoid things like commitment. It's now not really frowned upon. It's not frowned upon, but it's not openly like disclosed. Rather, people do go to like sex stores. I'm not gonna hit on it too much. Um, Chapter 16, last chapter. So we have injury and we have violence. Starting in the intro, we are introduced to an injury as simple as a bike wreck. We learn that injuries can happen almost anywhere, and unfortunately, can take the form in any health area we opened up in chapter 1 to cause damage to individuals. Even though many dangers exist that can cause injuries, we learn that humans have developed many ways to try to combat these. An example is if you crash in a car, your seatbelt will save you, along with your air cushion absorbing the blast. Typically, when we think of injuries, we think of blunt force trauma physically. However, something molecular could passively hurt you, such as an infection or substances that we read about, like poison. Also, it says that many skills or training exist to help in case you encounter these specific like injuries. Like Heimlich maneuver, you have CPR, just as examples. We're introduced to violence and thrown into statistics and in examples to grasp a better understanding on violence altogether. We learn like injuries takes form of many healths to harm like others. So you can cyberbully somebody. You could stab somebody. That's a physical harm. I'd say that bullying can kind of go both mental and physical ways. That's a fair thing to say. If you shun somebody, that's if I shun you or I make fun of you, that's gonna be mental harm. And then yeah. So let's talk about chapter 16. All right, so chapter 16. So injuries and violence. So let me extend on that. Yeah, so violence takes the forms of many health. So sorry about that. I just want to make sure that I hit something. I didn't want to miss it. If I did, I would have felt terrible. So let's talk about chapter 16 in the world of college today. Injuries exist. Adults are just reckless. We're crazy. And now that we're independent and we're on our own, we have the ability to literally do whatever we want. There's some people will do whatever they want and not care about the repercussions, whether it's a crime, you're speeding, or you commit murder or rape. It's like you don't care about what the repercussions are. There could be many reasons why. As far as injuries, I mean that can go both ways. Like that can go with violence, or that can go with yeah. I'm like that can go like legally too. Like I could be doing wheelies on my bike on my I'm on my bike outside, and even though it's illegal, I can still do it and have plenty of fun. um, is it smart? It's not a stunt bike, but I mean, it's fun. Um, but it's illegal. You know, it's like if I were out doing 80 miles per hour on my bike, and I was stuck behind the car, and there's a car here, there's a car here, there's a car here, there's a car here. My bike is right here. You could lane split between all four of them. You know, is it smart? No, but that's an example of something that can cause an injury. You know, it's not smart, but at a younger age, you feel the ability and the need to be more wild. More of my personal experiences, I always lived life on the edge, and that's kind of where I still am. And really, college has nothing to do with it. That's just who I am as a person. That's who I've developed. In college, it doesn't really feed it. Like my time in the Marine Corps fed it. Being in college, I just entertain it now. Like I just administer it to other people who want to live that same life. But slide 25. Thank you so much. I hope you enjoyed my presentation. I had such a wonderful semester in HHE 270 with Miss Vonda James. Uh, Thank you so much. I hope you enjoyed this, and I hope that it was knowledgeable. I had a great time in class. It was sad that we missed out on our last month together with COVID-19, but things do happen. And I know that in the end, hopefully that everything will be fine. I hope that you guys had a good semester too. So thank you for letting me. Thank you for not only being a part of my life, but thank you for letting me be a part of yours. Thank you, and have a great day.